Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It, the podcast to help you fix your marriage. I'm Shai Lewis. I'm here with Nina Rosner. Our mission is to help you, Christian married man or woman, navigate conflict and build connections so you can have a thriving marriage. All right, so today our topic is 5 ways to become winsome in your communication. All right. So being winsome with your words is kind of challenging when you're in the middle of conflict. But if you work on it, this is a skill that can become extremely effective when you're dealing with difficult people or just hard situations. We think about politicians and salespeople and how they are pretty good at this. And that's kind of why they're in these fields, is because they've been able to develop that. Um, but on a just basic level, I think it's something that we can all benefit from if we, you know, do the work and maybe even just be open to what God might be doing in us along the way. So I also want to say that this is a biblical concept. So before you get to thinking, oh, this seems manipulative or just, something that you're using to, you know, undermine or underhand someone. This is actually a biblical concept. So God tells wives specifically that we can win our husbands over with our speech. And so you're good. All right. So before I get started, I just want to direct you to our website. It's Greater Impact Wives. This is where you can find a free PDF called 5 Tools for How to Stop Walking on Eggshells. We also have a free marriage assessment for you to download. This is going to help you understand where you are in your marriage. And also, you can have opportunity to reach out to us if you are interested in more help. So, welcome, Nina. I'm excited to talk to you about this topic today.
I love the whole thing about being winsome. You got to walk this line of telling the truth without being manipulative,
Mhm.
um, or being kind of a pansy and people pleaser to the point where you're not telling the truth. Like it's just like, how do you navigate that, right? And I think it matters a lot because there's a huge difference between, well, this is the example, so sorry, but saying to somebody, dude, you need a bath. Like, go, don't touch me. Like, back off, buddy. Get a shower. There's a way to not say that and instead be like, oh, yes, that sounds fun. And I'm more than game as soon as you get cleaned up. Can't wait. So that's a whole different thing. Women hate having intimacy interactions with men that are smelly. We have a more sensitive nose, you know. Um, but yeah, the way you go about saying something in that space can either crush his heart or make him motivated. So there's that.
Yeah, there's that. So I love that you are putting the focus and the emphasis on what you can do versus what's happening around you, because I do think that that often can affect the desire even to be winsome. And what do you think about that? I mean, because yeah, we can be winsome when it's no conflict, when the sun is shining, but what about when, oh man, that person is not being so sunshiny?
Yeah. Yeah. Like when when your spouse has had a rotten day and they
Hmm.
dump half of it on you and you can stand there and look at them and go, I know that you love me. I know that. Do you want to try all of that again? As if that was also true. And then smile, the hey buddy, I'm on your side kind of thing. Um, or you seem something. You all right? It's not like you to, you know, hmm, you want to try this again? And just be, lighter about it. We get our feelings hurt over the smallest microscopic things sometimes. Like, oh my goodness. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was super upset that one of the people in this family didn't call them, but somebody else did to let them know something. And it was it was like I listened to the story about it and I just went, really? Wow. I said, so what's under that for you? And they just went on and on about how inconsiderate the other person was and da 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 da. And I'm like, and I couldn't figure it out. Like nothing that they were saying was making sense. I said, so what is it you believe about this other person and why it was so important that they call you instead of the person that did? They said, well, they never call me. And I'm like, oh, what's that like for you? Well, it just hurts. It's just like they should be calling me and they're not. It's like, yeah, I get that. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to understand there's stuff going on underneath,
Mm-hmm.
for everybody, including us. So when somebody's coming at you, it's usually not about you,
Right.
it's something inside of them. So can we meet them where they're at and love them well? That
Mm-hmm.
always works better.
Yeah. Meet them where they're at. So that's actually one of the ways that you can be winsome is just to, like she said, meet people where they are. We talk about validation all the time because it works. It's just that secret sauce to every difficult conversation that can be a bridge, right? That opens it up to a new experience. So I want to also mention that being their ally, right, can often help, right, in these difficult situations because when you're in the middle of conflict, sometimes the mindset is that you're on different teams. Nina, you mentioned the comment, we're on the same team, and I think sometimes we lose that when we're not
Mhm.
seeing eye to eye or we have different ideas about things, but simply maybe saying, I'm on your team and sort of reminding your person that you're not in opposition. You have a common enemy,
Mhm.
but you're not your spouse's enemy. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, we forget because it's so easy to be mad at the human sitting right there, and we don't realize they're struggling with something too. And so, asking the question, like one of the most common things I hear is from women whose husbands are not doing the things they said they were going to do. And there's, just a lack of initiative. And there's hundreds of reasons for that. But the most common reason is that the women are leading with complaint and it's really painful for the guy. And so he's dragging his feet, he just digs his heels in on the thing, even if it's a good thing to go do. And so the question then becomes, how can I support you in this? Is this still important for us to get done? You know, are you in agreement with that still? If you're not, let's talk about that
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
maybe he lied because he didn't want to hurt your feelings, and people do that all the time. And then if it is still important, then okay, how can I help you? Like what do you need from me in this space?
Hmm.
Versus blaming it all on him when even if it's his responsibility to do the thing, it's possible that just offering help to somebody is like, there's really not anything you can do. Well, okay, so what do you think's in the way? And then they can say, well, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Or I tried this and, it just seems like too big of a thing. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that. And then you can be useful in that space versus being critical and condemning and leaving the person just feeling judged. Like that's not being a friend. What do you want to do to encourage some forward movement? You want to be winsome in a way that helps people feel like they're not alone in whatever it is that they're doing. So
Yeah.
I don't pretend to be perfect at it, but I sure do want to be. Because that's our Jesus, right?
Absolutely. Only Jesus is perfect, so we can take a big sigh of relief that we don't have to be that. Okay, so I want to sort of shift gears a little bit because I do think that this can apply not just in marriage, but in other situations. In parenting, for instance, you might have a wayward child or just a stubborn child that you're dealing with, or even maybe a coworker or customer that just is hard. They're just being a hard, you know what, about everything. And it can feel like it's intentional. It can feel like this is the type of person that likes to go against the grain, that, just wants to test limits. They kind of enjoy pushing against boundaries. And those are sometimes the hardest people, right, to become winsome with. I was listening to another podcast, and it was about parenting, and they said that sometimes when you have a child that is like this, um, the best thing to do is make it fun. Like create an environment where the thing that you're doing or suggesting, they buy into it because it suddenly becomes fun and it becomes an adventure for them, which kind of builds that friendship and you know, you becoming their ally. Would you agree that that's an effective way to you know, deal with somebody that's just stubborn and just will not budge in there? Because I
Yeah.
know I'm not the only one that, right, has had this
Oh man.
experience.
Yeah, I've raised a few kids like this, and it seems that the genetics have passed down to my grandchildren as well. Not all of them, but there's a few that, come over to my house and demand ice cream for breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like, no, not doing that because you're here 2 hours from now when you're going to be sugary. Like, no. But and I don't handle it by just flat out saying no. I'm like, why do you want ice cream?
Yeah.
Well, it just tastes so good. I'm like, yeah, I know it really does, doesn't it? They're like, yeah, you were gonna feed us breakfast. I said, yeah, I am. Well, I want ice cream. I said, you know what? I want ice cream too. And we're not gonna eat it for breakfast, but maybe we'll have some after dinner. You know, and there's a little flash of disappointment. And it's like, you want to help me make the eggs? When you ask a 3-year-old to do something in the kitchen that they've never done before, they're all in. Like you give them a whisk and a big enough bowl that they can't slop it everywhere, but can still handle it. Like it's chaos, but they love it.
Yes.
And you really got to lower your standards on food to do this, by the way. But they need to be part of it. And it's fun. It's absolutely fun. I did a lot of gardening in our other home when my kids were growing up. We raised them in a subdivision, with the landscaped all the things and blah, blah, blah. And we did all of that ourselves because I love to garden. And I would bring the boys out there and I'd hand them these small shovels and I'd say, okay, so the goal today is to conquer this tree. I can't get it out of the ground. I'm not strong enough. Do you think you guys are
Mm.
men enough for the task? And I've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they're like, yeah, we can do this,
I
and
love.
I'd come, oh, I'd check on them. And how's it coming? It's almost out, Mom. It's almost out. It's just so proud of them for, the sweat and like I could probably do it. Like it's not, I'm
Yeah.
much bigger than them, and I was definitely stronger than they were at the time, but
Yeah.
the two of them could handle stuff like that. So you give them things to handle that. And you got to be okay with there being some dirt everywhere and
Yes.
stuff getting broken. But are you having a tourable garden for all of the neighbors and the horticultural society to come visit and document and write about? Or are you raising kids?
Hmm.
If your priority is raising kids, then be okay with a little messy because that's messy business, man. All the way around. But they love it and it's fun.
Yeah. And I love how the focus is also on the expectation side of things because so often I think we lose that, you know, excitement because our expectation is for it to be perfect or we want them to do it the way we did it. And
Hmm.
that kind of ruins the entire experience. So what I'm
Yeah.
hearing is that sometimes you just need to surrender the outcome of what a win, for instance, would look like. Because it might not look like what you want it to look like, but that doesn't mean it's not a win. So
Yeah.
I love that example. Um, okay. One other point I'd like to make, or one of the other ways I think that helps us become winsome is when we can also detach, right, from you know, the person. Like sometimes we as parents will have our identities wrapped into our children and what they choose to do, or as spouses, we'll have our identities wrapped into our marriage or our spouses. And that can muddy the waters as well because, you know, if they're in a different mindset than we are and we're trying to win them over and they're not budging, then we can get out of sorts because we're too attached to their decisions. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think part of the process in becoming winsome is being able to separate yourself from that person or from that relationship. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. Like we get our identity wrapped up in other humans' opinions of us
Mm-hmm.
versus God's.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we live a life like that, it is just awful. We're trapped. And, it's not to say that you shouldn't serve other people. Like, that's not what this is about. This is about, am I okay when my person is not okay? You know, or even if they're upset with me over something, and maybe I did something that is useful to the relationship and was hard and they didn't want to hear it, but they needed to because iron sharpens iron. That means there's some pounding and some heat in there. So good relationships have a dose of truth. You can definitely be gentle in that, but you really need to bring your best self to the equation all the time. And that means that you're serving God, that you obey God and not man, and you let him sort the outcomes. And that's one of the reasons, and all of the stuff that we do at Greater Impact is designed at the core of it, the heart of all of it is let's help people connect with the Lord more deeply. Let's help them understand his word and his heart for them. Because when they get that in the middle of a moment, you can do this thing because you hear the Lord in your head and he's giving you the words and he's reinforcing the scripture. And so you do that thing and you're kind but firm, truthful, honest, respectful about it, and then your spouse doesn't like it. Okay, or your kid doesn't like it. It's like, all right, you knew that you did what you were asked to do, and you're going to let God sort that out. I have people in my life that I've done things like that with, and they've come to me years later.
Anyway, okay, let's move on to the last point I wanted to make, which is sometimes we just need to let life, right, teach us what a win is. And sometimes if it's just so hard that you can't win the person over, that surrendering can look like, okay, let's do it your way and see what happens. Because I'm not gonna really fight you on the thing that you really want. So it's not going to be necessarily you're the enemy. You're going to be their ally in the way of letting them choose their own way. So
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Oh, yes. I have a client whose husband's like, we don't need to pay the electric bill. It's fine that we're late. I know they've sent notices, but and she's been losing her ever-loving mind over this um, for about 2 months because he's behind on their bills and he won't let her do it. He's like, no, I'll take care of it. So they shut off their electricity. She just was like, okay. And she did what you just said. She was like, I'm just gonna say, God, whatever you allow to happen, I'm gonna be okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw the people come and turn off the whatever to the house, and then they left, and then the power went out. And she calls her husband at work, and then she says, so I'm not sure how you want to handle this. They've just shut the power off, and I went on my phone and went to the website, and it's an extra $120 for them to come back and turn it back on. In addition to, we have to pay the past 2 months and this month's bill because we're now 3 months in arrears. So, what do you want to do? And he just blew a gasket, right? And he said, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a couple hours later, sure enough, the power company comes back out and turns the power on, back on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and apparently he paid the bill and all of that. And then that was this is a while ago, that, she was dealing with this. And you see, like, this is a popular topic.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen women suffer through this one. Like, it's ridiculous, right? It's like, just set it on
Mm-hmm.
auto pay. But
Right.
there's some people that won't do that, that like to have
Right.
control, that like to look at everything. And it's like, that's okay, do you in that
Mm-hmm.
space. But meanwhile, I can't make toast, you know, and we're wearing parkas and it's, snowing. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I've seen everything from it happening 3 or 4 times to it happening once, and that's the end of it, right? But
Yeah.
eventually people do end up learning. And
Yeah.
I say let's ride the horse you're given. Let's figure it out in the middle of the moment with the Lord what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it never looks like condemnation. It does look like telling the truth. Like, here's the information. How do you want me to take care of this? Or, what do you want to do? Or even like one of my clients, this is a popular issue. One of my clients sent her husband just a text and said, the power is out, question mark. That was it.
That's
And
it.
and
Yeah.
then a couple hours later, the power gets turned back on. She goes and checks, and sure enough, he paid all the bill and blah blah blah, right? So, and then that was it, the end of it. But you don't know what it takes
Yeah.
for somebody to learn something, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You just don't know. But God does.
Correct.
And so can we pray for that person? Can we be patient in it? And it's okay when he says, "Yeah, no, I do what you need to do here." You know, there's times where you step in as protector with, especially with kids, where you do the next right thing
Mm-hmm.
because of what's going on, but you're under the orders of the Father, 100%. So you gotta be able to hear that first to make that a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Tough stuff, but there are different ways to ride different horses, and hopefully we've given you some tips on how to do that. Before we wrap up, we just want to have this question of the day, our question of the week, I would say, moment. We've added this to our podcast. And so this comes from our clients, it comes from our coaches, or it comes from just these scenarios Nina talks about that we encounter. And they're very common, like she says. So, Nina, I just want to give you the opportunity to answer this for our listeners. And this is from anonymous person, and she asks, "How do I deal with a family member who is overstepping boundaries? This person's interfering with our personal family decisions, and it's her in-laws essentially." And it seems like her spouse is just really swayed by his family, and she's trying to set boundaries. She wants the relationship with her in-laws, but she also wants to protect her family. So, what would you advise her to do in this situation?
Yeah, that's such a common thing. When the in-laws, especially with the husband side, he has, it sounds like he has not done the biblical leave and cleave.
Mm,
Because in an ideal situation, he would be telling his mom and dad, "Hey, we'll talk about that and get back to you," you know? So
hmm.
he and his wife would be the unified front. Like that's the goal. And so when you don't have that situation, when you have the mom and dad interfering, and it depends on the specifics of the situation. But let's say it's something about well, I had a guy pick up some stuff this morning for the farm, and he was talking about how his granddaughter is not fed the right foods, and how they've been trying to talk to their son about all of this, and it's just not going well. And I thought, huh, you're not supposed to be trying to get into that, even if you're right, right?
Yeah.
And I just had that little perspective there. But when the in-laws and your spouse are aligned together against you, then it comes down to, well, what am I going to do about that? To your point, what are the boundaries I'm going to have? And so it
Mhm.
depends on the specific situation, but there needs to be some. And a first step is always, let's make these people close to me. Let's get
Mm,
in good, deep relationship with them so that I have some influence in the relationship. Because otherwise, right now, it's me against the three of them, right? And I
mhm.
can't remember who said this. It was some genius politician. I can't remember. But anyway, they said, keep your loved ones close and your enemies closer.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So, and we're supposed to love our enemies anyway. These
Mhm.
people probably aren't really your enemies, but what does it look like to form a deeper relationship with them? And then what does it look like to ask them for help? And do so in a way that's to your point about winsomeness today. To
Mhm.
say something like, "Hey, I really appreciate how you guys are always there for us. You pick up the kids from school, you watch them on the weekend so we can have a date. I really value that. And what I don't want is for you to feel like um, I don't value your advice and your opinions. I also have noticed that it seems like when I ask for something or, get real specific around this particular area, well, TV, for example,
Mhm.
um, that I'm not really feeling like I'm getting heard in that space. And so I'm wondering if we could have a discussion around that and see what the issues are for you. And, as you did for your kids, I'm trying to do what I consider the best for mine. And so I'm wondering if we can have a meeting of the minds on this. And you'd probably want to start that conversation with your husband. You know, hey, how do you feel about the kids watching so much TV when they're at your mom's? And he'd probably be like, well, I don't care. Okay, I do. And I don't mean to be putting men down. A lot of men are aware of this issue and how it
Mhm.
damages the brain and all of that. A lot of them aren't. But you'd want to have a conversation about that with him and say, what do you think is fair to ask? And how can we manage this? And then here's what I'm planning on doing. I'd really like your support with that. And I promise I'm not going to be terrible about it. But I do feel like I want to talk to them about it because we can't focus for the rest of the day if they're over there in the morning because they've watched a lot of television and some of it I don't think is stuff they should be seeing at their age. And
Mm.
just having some conversation around what the issue is. So it's a lot of let's have some good communication with the people involved and be winsome about it, be
Mhm.
appreciative of what they're already doing, and letting them know, I don't know if you know this, but we're having a really hard time getting them to do schoolwork afterwards. I'm homeschooling, let's say, and I try to do school after they've been at your house and they can't focus. Um, and so I'm wondering if I could get your help with something. I wonder if we could just have zero sugar and only nature shows on TV and maybe just an hour of that. Would that be something that's feasible?
Mhm.
And the chances are these people are good people. They love you,
Mhm.
but the way you approach all of that is going to matter. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's such great advice. Well, I hope that was helpful. All right, so what will you do with the information you have? We invite you to again check out our website. We've got lots of goodies. We also have more episodes on this channel that I think would help you. Check out the next one. It's going to be a good one on how to resolve conflict in a difficult situation. Thanks for joining today. We will see you next time.